Chumipsua, welcome back. So now this video is going to cover my trip to Malaysia, which would be the next 2 weeks following IST. So Malaysia was very fun. I went with one of my provincial friends named Chloe, and well, first of all, I had no idea about anything about Malaysia. And I didn't really have solid plans to do any kind of international travel, because I would like to do international travel after the Peace Corps. I plan on taking some time off and kind of touring Southeast Asia once this is all done. So I was like, you know what, while I'm in service, let's do a bunch of Cambodia things. But when I tuned into the Cambodia things, I was like, I'm not really sounding that fun right now. Especially because it's super hot. Like, I want to go to the national parks and like do some outdoor hiking stuff, and it just sounded really hot. So one day my friend Chloe's like, hey, what are you thinking about doing for going out like during the travel period? I'm like, oh, I don't know. She was like, well, I'm looking at like things like Vietnam and this country Malaysia, and she showed me this island called Langkawi. And I was like, that sounds super chill. Just being on a beach for like 2 weeks and like getting to swim in the ocean. So we basically, within 4 days of Here's talking about it, we had it approved and booked and we were good to go. So super spontaneous, but also very awesome. So we started out in Kuala Lumpur. So you can fly into Kuala Lumpur, and we flew out of Langkawi. The original plan was just to go to Langkawi, but it was like, maybe we'd want to do some other stuff there. And I think that was a good call. So we flew into Kuala Lumpur. We had a big city day where we just walked around, looked at some of the big like buildings that are famous there. There's like these twin tower sort of things, and then also kind of like the Space Needle from Seattle, called the Kuala Lumpur Tower. But mostly it was just a lot of walking around, a lot of looking at things, and just getting to know the city. It's a very modern city. I didn't know that going into it, especially coming from Cambodia. Cambodia is like very much a developing country, but Malaysia, at least mainland Malaysia, is relatively developed, you know? Seeing there's more cars here than motorcycles, whereas Phnom Penh and Cambodia, everyone has a motorcycle. Not a lot of people have cars. Malaysia, lots of people had cars, and it really felt like I was like in an American city, except for it's a jungle. Like, it was covered in trees, and it was really cool. It's also a very diverse city, so there was a lot of different cultures. They're predominantly Islamic culture, but there's also seems to be a pretty big Hindu population. There seems to be a pretty big Chinese Buddhist population, and as well as lots of other tourists who come through. But the people living there seem to be a pretty good mix of cultural diversity, which also felt like being in the United States, because Cambodia, there is a mix, I think, of ethnic backgrounds, but people are still very much Cambodian. Like, it seems very homogenous, the culture here, even when you're in the big city. And in Malaysia, I felt like in Kuala Lumpur, like the diversity was very, very obvious, which was kind of cool. So let's see, the second day we went to the Batu Caves, which is a pretty famous landmark in Malaysia. It's a big Hindu temple with these big colorful stairs that lead up into this cave, and there's a temple up there. It was really, really pretty, but it's not an ancient temple, which was kind of surprising to find out. It was built in the 1900s, and all the colorful paint on the stairs was even done later than that. So we did that. We got up at like 6 in the morning, or we were there at 6:30 or something. It opened at 7, so I think we were there as soon as it opened because we wanted to beat the traffic, and we did. We were like some of the only people there for the first part of it. So we did that for a little bit. Then there was this smaller cave off to the side that we walked to. And this one, the Batu Caves was free. This other cave cost a few ringgits, which 5 ringgits is $1. So it was like maybe 3 or 4 ringgits to go into this other cave. And we did, and there was nobody in there. And then there was this big quiet meditation cave, and we went in and we ended up taking a nap because it was super hot out and it was so nice in this cave. We both just like sat on the floor and then fell asleep. And then some people came in and then we got out. So we went to some hot springs after that. But it was really interesting because these hot springs, they have a bunch of different pools, but there's only one soaking pool. So all these other pools, you like take a bucket and scoop yourself. There's only one pool you're allowed to fully submerge yourself in. And it was super duper hot. I mean, it was probably like 112, 115 temperature water. I really love hot springs, so I did it. And I was able to hang out for maybe 5-ish minutes in the water. And I did that a couple times. And then this lady told us about a waterfall that was nearby. And she said there's like this super touristy waterfall that everybody goes to, but she knew about this one like more local, smaller waterfall. And she told us how to get there. So we took a Grab, which is basically like Southeast Asia has Grab. It's kind of like their version of Uber. So we were grabbing everywhere basically. That's how I got around anywhere. We took a Grab to this other waterfall, and it was super quiet. There was like nobody there except a couple locals. We got in the water, did some waterfall stuff, and then we left. And then we went out for Chloe's birthday that night. That's right. We went and had a couple drinks and a little bit of dinner. It wasn't anything too crazy because it was Monday night, but that's okay. So the next day we went to Georgetown. So Georgetown is this other relatively big city. It's on an island, but it's not like an island like white sandy beaches kind of thing. And it's a pretty developed city on an island close to the mainland. Like there's a bridge across to the island. So we took some public transportation. We got there pretty late. We didn't do much that day. And then the next day we got up and we did like a city day around Georgetown. So we kind of walked around and looked at all the little shops. And then there was kind of like an art area, like where there's like a bunch of paintings and this cool little umbrella alleyway. So we took some pictures there, kind of explored around that. Oh, and then we went to the floating villages. So there's like these docks with all these little shops and stuff on them, which admittedly was a little touristy, but it was still pretty cool to walk through. And then after that, I can't remember. I think we went back to the hotel. I don't believe that's what happened, but I think that's what happened. Yes. I can't remember what happened after that, but I think that's what happened. Anyways, the next day we went out and we tried to go to the national park there, but the national park was something like, I don't know, $10 I think to get in, and we were like, we don't really want to spend $10 just to go to a national park because all we're gonna do is hang out at the beach. So we ended up finding a free beach to hang out at for a little while, and then we went up to this temple. And Chloe was saying, I haven't done my own research, but this is supposedly the oldest temple in Malaysia. And we got there and it was super gorgeous. It was such a big, pretty temple. And it was also free. So I did some walking around this temple. They have this giant statue of a goddess named Guan Yin, who I think is a Chinese goddess, from what I understand. Something from Buddhism. I did a little research, but I totally forgot all of it. So if you have any interest, you should look up Guan Yin. But it was a huge, huge, huge statue. Yeah, like so big. And I think generally people were allowed to go up there, but we couldn't because they were doing some kind of maintenance that day. So we had to just sit and look at it from below. But most of this temple was free. It costed like a couple ringgits to use the gondola thing to get up to the Guan Yin statue. That was totally worth it because it was super cool up there. While we were up there, well, okay, I'll explain the next thing and then the next thing. So then we basically went back to the hotel after that, went swimming, and then we went out and got some food with somebody that we met on the temple. So there's this German dude up there. His name is Christopher, and he was taking some cool videos, and I was kind of interested because I kind of like to do little amateur photography. So I was like, what does your videos look like? Like, how does this turn out? So he's showing me his stuff, showed me his Instagram, like things he's got going on. And then as we were talking, we found out we've got a pretty similar itinerary to going to the island of Langkawi. So at that point we were thinking, well, yeah, we were all gonna take a bus, basically. Like, you had to take a ferry to get to a bus to get up to Langkawi. And we were like, why don't we travel together? So that was the plan. We got together with him that night to get a little bit of food and stuff. And then the next day we got on the ferry and we rode to the bus station. At the bus station, we met this lady named Sam, who is British originally but has been living in Italy the last 30 years of her life, and she also had a very similar itinerary to us, which was sweet. So we kind of assembled this little gang, and then the four of us rode. Well, we sat in different places on the ferry, but then after the ferry we got to grab together to the part of the island we'd all be staying at. We found out our hostels were kind of like, here's one, here's the other, here's the other, so we're pretty much right in the same vicinity. And yeah, we spent pretty much a lot of time together while hanging out on Langkawi. Let's see. So the first night we went out and just like got some drinks on the beach, hung out. The second day, we did a lot of just beach stuff. I feel like we just did a lot of hanging out and doing beach stuff. But then eventually, one of these fine folks rented a car and we drove around the island to some of the cool sites. So we got high up on one of these mountains. There's like this big touristy sky bridge that apparently costs like, I don't know, 20 bucks or something to do. We totally skipped it because there was this other peak that we were able to just drive up to the top of for free. And it was beautiful. We got like a great view of Langkawi from there. And we drove down and then we hit a few beaches along the way. This was really interesting though, because we left and we planned to get some food on the road, and we absolutely could not do it because, as I mentioned before, Malaysia is a predominantly Islamic country, and we were there in the middle of Ramadan, so everybody was fasting during the day and all of the restaurants were closed until nighttime. So that threw a big wrench in our plans for food on our journey. But we did end up getting some crappy food at a little like gas station convenience store, and that held us over until we got to the north part of the island where there was this fish and chips place. Of course it was a western place open, and that's pretty much what we had for lunch. And then we just did some beach tours. There's like 2 or 3 beaches we hit along the way, and then another person we met at the hostel recommended these waterfalls. So we went to the waterfall. This was at the end of the day, and it was really cool. We decided we were gonna come back because there was like a whole series of waterfalls basically, and we only saw the first one. So we went back, and then the next day we went back to these waterfalls, and the waterfalls were cool. Like I said, we spent like 5 hours there. It was like way more time than I think we were planning on, but that's okay. It was still really fun. The next plan after that was to do a little kayaking, which the doctor recommended I don't do, but when in Rome I really wanted to do some kayaking, and so did Sam and Chloe. So we drove up to the kayak place, It was this other really awesome beach, and we got there about 4 o'clock, and they said they were closed, so bummer. I didn't get to go kayaking, which is probably good per the doctor's orders, because he told me not to go kayaking or swimming, but I did go swimming, and I just held my hand up out of the water, and it was fine, because the waves weren't really rough. It was actually very calm water, so I was grateful. Let's see, so then we went back. Sam went home that day, and then we had one more day basically of just hanging out, and that day happened to be Eid, so the hostel next door had this big buffet. We had like a banquet, we sang a bunch of karaoke, and it was a huge party, and I think that was a really cool way to end the evening. I really appreciated going to Malaysia, traveling. I met a lot of really cool people while we were there, and I think travel just gives a good reset. Like, I feel refreshed, not having responsibilities for 2 weeks. Now I'm back in Cambodia. I still have a week before I start work again, but I feel totally reset and have totally new perspective on life and everything. Even in just a couple weeks, you know, it changes you. And I feel ready to do the thing I'm here to do again, and go for another 5 months, and then I get to travel again. We'll see what happens next time, where the road takes me. But thanks again for watching. Leah, hi, and have a great day wherever you are.